So let me ask you a question. What if the way we've been searching for the next superstar athlete is, well, completely wrong? We're often told that talent is like a lottery ticket. You're either born with it or you're not. But today, we're going to take that idea and completely dismantle it. We're going to explore a really powerful, holistic guide to how an athlete truly grows from their very first steps all the way to their absolute peak potential. This isn't just about spotting talent. It's about systematically nurturing it.
So here's the plan. We're going to tackle this in 5 key areas. First, we'll rethink this whole concept of talent ID. Then, we'll do a deep dive into what I call the 4 interconnected pillars of growth. That's the cognitive, the psychosocial, the physical, and finally, motor development. So let's get right into it and challenge the very idea of what talent even looks like.
Okay, so how do we find the next great champion? For decades, the playbook's been pretty simple, right? You just focus on current performance. Who's the fastest? Who's the strongest? Who is the best right now? But as you're about to see, this incredibly narrow focus, well, it often causes us to completely miss the athletes with the greatest long-term potential.
This more humanistic view was really championed by the late Dr. Mehdi Namazizadeh, who is widely considered the father of motor behavior science in Iran. His philosophy was a total game changer. He said, look, sport isn't just about winning trophies, it's a powerful tool for building human beings. And to build a great athlete, you first have to understand the whole person.
Well, the answer often lies in all the stuff we can't see on a stopwatch or a scoreboard. We might push a child's body through training it just isn't mature enough to handle. Or, even worse, we might completely ignore their emotional and psychological needs. And listen, these are not minor mistakes. They are the very reasons promising young athletes burn out and walk away from a sport they used to love. This is exactly where a more holistic framework becomes absolutely essential.
And here it is. This is that framework. The solution is to see an athlete's journey along 4 deeply interconnected paths: their mind, their heart, their body, and their movement. And here's the key. None of these pillars stands alone. A dip in confidence can totally stunt physical progress. A big growth spurt can throw off motor coordination. Understanding how they all interact, that is the real secret to unlocking an athlete's true, lasting potential.
Let's start with that first pillar, the mind. An athlete's ability to think, to read the game, to solve problems on the fly. This is just as critical as any physical skill you can name. And this ability, it's not static. No way. It evolves in these predictable, really fascinating stages.
For this, we got to talk about the brilliant Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget. What he revealed was that thinking and movement are inseparable. We don't just move our bodies through space. We actually move to understand the world around us. And as our understanding grows, our ability to move with purpose and intelligence grows right along with it.
Now, this diagram, which includes some of the original Farsi text from our source material, lays out Piaget's 4 key stages. From birth to age 2, it's all about learning through your senses and actions. Then, from 2 to 7, thinking becomes more symbolic, but it's still very me first. Around age 7, logic starts to kick in, but only for concrete events you can see and touch. And then finally, from 11 on up, the brain can actually start to grapple with abstract thought and complex strategy.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for a coach or a parent? It means you have to meet the child where they are. I mean, you wouldn't ask a 7-year-old to analyze game film, right? But you can give them a really fun obstacle course that hones their problem solving. And for teenagers, you can open up the playbook and start discussing complex tactics. The key is to match the mental challenge to their developmental stage.
But a brilliant mind, well, it needs a resilient heart. A young athlete's brain could be totally ready for complex tactics, but if their confidence is shattered, none of it matters. And that brings us to our next crucial pillar, the social and emotional journey of an athlete.
For this piece of the puzzle, we turn to the psychologist Erik Erikson. His groundbreaking theory suggests that at each stage of life, we face a central emotional challenge or a crisis. Now, if we successfully navigate these challenges, we build a stronger, more resilient personality. For a young athlete, this is everything. It is the source of their motivation, their grit, and their ability to handle pressure.
Now, what's so cool about this is how it translates these big psychological ideas into simple, powerful coaching actions. For a toddler who's wrestling with autonomy, just letting them choose the drill can be a huge win. For an adolescent trying to figure out who they are, making them a team captain can be absolutely transformative. And look at that crucial stage from 7 to 12, industry versus inferiority. If a child feels incompetent here, they're going to stop taking risks, which, you guessed it, directly impacts their cognitive and motor skill development. You see, it all connects.
All right, let's talk about the hardware, the body itself. It's obvious that athletes grow, but how they grow is anything but a simple straight line. There are these slow burns and then there are sudden explosions of growth, and understanding the timing of these changes is a massive tactical advantage.
So the Bolyai model gives us this incredible roadmap for the journey. It completely shifts the focus from their chronological age, how old they are in years, to their biological age by tracking physical development based on the speed of their growth. This is how smart coaches know precisely when to introduce certain types of training, and maybe more importantly, when to back off and focus on recovery and skill.
And this is what that roadmap looks like. You can see the initial explosion of growth in infancy, that steady climb through childhood, and then, boom, the massive spike of the adolescent growth spurt, what we call peak height velocity. This is a golden window for developing things like speed and endurance, but it's also a danger zone. That sudden growth can make an athlete feel awkward and uncoordinated, which can totally crush their confidence, that's Erikson's domain, and temporarily disrupt the very motor skills they've worked so hard to build. And here is a critical detail that every single coach needs to have basically tattooed on their brain: the timing is different for boys and girls. Girls typically hit their growth spurt about 2 years earlier than boys. So a coach who's running the same exact practice for a team of 12-year-old boys and girls is actually training two completely different types of athletes. Ignoring this isn't just inefficient, it's irresponsible.
So, we've explored the thinking mind, the feeling heart, and the growing body. Now, let's bring it all together in our final pillar, motor development. This is the story of how we learn to move with grace and power and skill. And you know what? There is no better way to visualize it than with an hourglass.
I want you to imagine all human movement potential as sand at the top of an hourglass. As we grow, that sand begins to pour down, and it gets filtered and refined through different stages of life, eventually emerging as the specialized, skillful movements that define us as athletes and, well, as people. This slide, which also has some Farsi text from our source, shows the flow. So the sand first passes through the newborn's involuntary reflexive period. Then comes the rudimentary period of infancy, where we're learning to control the body, to sit and crawl and stand. Next is the fundamental period of childhood, mastering the building blocks of all sports: running, jumping, throwing. Finally, that sand flows into the narrowest part of the hourglass, the specialized period, where we combine all those fundamentals into complex, sport-specific skills.
Let's look right at the very beginning of that pour. These early reflexes, they're kind of like the body's pre-installed diagnostic software. The Moro reflex, or the startle reflex, is a classic example. A sudden sound or movement, and the baby throws their arms wide open before pulling them back in.
Here's another key one, the Babinski reflex. You stroke the sole of an infant's foot, and the big toe bends back. Now, the amazing thing here isn't just that these reflexes exist. It's that their timely disappearance is what signals that healthy neurological development is right on track.
And finally, my personal favorite, the ATNR, or the fencing reflex. When a baby's head turns to one side, the arm on that same side extends. This isn't just some cute posture. This simple reflex is literally laying the neural groundwork for future hand-eye coordination. I mean, think about a shortstop tracking a ground ball, or a tennis player lining up a forehand. The deep, deep roots of that elite skill are right here.
And this brings us to the full, beautiful picture. Look at the top of the hourglass again. The sand pouring in comes from two sources: heredity, our genetic blueprint, and environment, our culture, our coaching, our opportunities. These two forces pour into the hourglass, interacting with and being shaped by every single stage of cognitive, social, and physical growth, to ultimately forge the unique athletic potential of every single human being.
Which brings us right back to our first question, but now we're looking at it with a completely new lens. When we look at a young athlete, we can't just see their current performance. We have to see the entire hourglass. We have to understand the 4 pillars that are holding them up. So the real question for every coach, every parent, every scout is this: are we just trying to identify some supposed 1 in a million talent, or are we truly committed to developing the whole person standing right in front of us, helping them become the very best they can be, both in sport and in life?